Hello and welcome to PTV World special transmission on the developing situation between India and Pakistan, and we're of course going to be taking a look at what the current situation is post the attack on the 22nd of April in Pahalgam, which Pakistan of course has condemned and expressed condolences for as well. We've seen though in the aftermath of that there has been a series of measures taken by India in violation of international norms and traditions, and then of course reciprocal measures being taken by Pakistan as well, with of course Pakistan calling for an independent and neutral investigation into the current scenario. So far, we've also engaged different diplomatic avenues, including the UNSC and international allies as well, including the US, China, and the UK, who have offered their support for mediation as well with the current situation, and have called for de-escalation and expressed concern over the developing situation between two nuclear armed states. And while that is true, of course, Pakistan has also made it very, very clear that India is involved in state-sponsored terrorism and has links with terror networks. And this is, of course, something that Pakistan has put forward with evidence in response to baseless allegations that have come from India without any evidence as to what has been going on. And so we're going to be taking a look at how effective that has been in the diplomatic channels such as the UNSC and other international partners, and how effective they will be in putting forward and exerting their own influence towards both India and Pakistan with the developing situation, and how exactly that's going to turn out. At the same time, of course, our military and security forces are fully prepared to thwart any misadventure against Pakistan. We've seen the Prime Minister also being given a detailed briefing at the ISI headquarters earlier today, and this is of course something that we've seen previously as well, where both the civil and military leadership have expressed their resolve and made it very, very clear that there will be no hesitation in responding to any misadventure if India intends to do so. However, Pakistan prefers peace, and that is what it has done so, and has exercised a lot of responsibility and restraint in the current situation. But we're going to be of course focusing on what is happening at the moment, and where do we see the situation developing, and where is it that can possibly be the avenue that can exist for any potential de-escalation. That is going to be the focus in the transmission today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by analyst Farrukh, Pitafi, and Faisal, and we've also been joined by a special guest, Barrister Safi, Ghauri, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, Barrister Safi, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you with reference to how you've looked at the situation so far. Of course, there are different measures and actions that have been taken and that have developed so far, but we have seen now that there is a lot of concern that is being expressed by the diplomatic community. We've seen the UN Secretary General also offering support and calling for de-escalation. Countries such as the US, China, Iran, the UK have also extended their support in this regard. But a lot of it, of course, also depends on how effective that will be, particularly on India's stance, and with the kind of warmongering and rhetoric we've seen coming in from their media, and how this initially started to where it is today. Do you see any change, particularly in the aftermath of the Pahalgam attack, to where India stands right now? And what sort of diplomatic avenue do you think is most likely going to have some sort of influence over India?
Excellent question, Sana. So right off the cuff, I think Pakistan's diplomatic play has been extremely mature. We have, in my opinion, we have demonstrated exemplary brinkmanship in this entire matter. The reason why I say this is because from the get-go, from the very beginning, there were two narratives. The Indian narrative, which is that Pakistan conducted an attack and India wants revenge, and this was a vengeance-based narrative. And then there was Pakistan, which said that, okay, fine, bring the evidence, let's conduct a thorough investigation, and if somebody is found guilty, then we can look into what the next steps are. Now, the same narrative is being echoed by the Secretary General, who says that there should be an investigation. The same narrative is being echoed by China, by Turkey, by Iran, who's, by the way, a very close ally of India. Almost all of Indian allies are now urging India to at least conduct an investigation and not just sort of be so trigger happy and try to be so aggressive. What this has done is it has exposed India's biased mindset. It shows that India is willing to act without any evidence whatsoever. And to date, by the way, I still don't get it. I watch Indian media and I don't understand when they constantly saying Pakistan backed. How? What evidence do you have to say Pakistan backed? It is psychotic for them to go around saying things like it was soldiers of Pakistan SSG when they don't even have those people apprehended. They don't know who the people are. And it's very funny because one of the drawings, you might have seen the memes, they actually look like a famous Pakistani cricketer. So for them to allege that Pakistani cricketer crossed borders and conducted an act of mass terrorism is just downright hilarious. It just shows how paranoid they are, and the whole world is watching it. India's paranoia, India's maniacal behavior is open display for the whole world to see, and that is why I say that this has been very effective is because immediately afterward, there was this tremendous pressure on India to act, and India has not acted yet. Even today, Khwaja Asif, our defense minister, said that those who shoot don't talk, and we are constantly inviting them, in fact, to take action if they so believe that they are so strong and they will.
Sure.
The very fact that they haven't goes on to show that they understand that they will not have the support that they require. I personally believe this. It's my personal opinion. Obviously, I don't have any evidence of this, but I think right now India is just looking for some face saving.
Well, what will that be?
Yeah. Maybe just like they did so previously, went to Balakot, shot down a couple of trees. Maybe once again they would want to just, hit a rock or something in Pakistan and claim that they've, put an end to a massive terrorist training camp. But Pakistan's not taking any nonsense from India this time around. Even if it's trees, even if it's rocks, I don't think Pakistan is willing to compromise. Earlier, Pakistan gave them, in fact, twice Pakistan has given them leeways. First, when it came to Pulwama, Pakistan gave them leeway, let them sort of cross in, and Pakistan did not carry out. Although there was quid pro quo one, but the second time around, if you recall, there was this incident of the Indian missile that came into Pakistan on the 9th of March, which could have escalated into a massive tension between the borders. But Pakistan let it slide, once again showing diplomatic restraint and maturity. India does not seem to respect that. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So I think it's only a matter of time before some more reasonable voices in India tell the Indian government that we are incapable of fighting Pakistan, which they are not. I 100% believe that if they had to attack, they would have done so already. Now it's just chest thumping.
Right. Faisal, I want your take on this too, because we've spoken about how the BJP government is actually going to now navigate the current situation and move away from the kind of rhetoric that has existed. But how do we see that happening, given the way that we've had a lot of discussion around how people themselves within India are calling for an explanation or calling for an understanding of the kind of rhetoric that was initially there and is not at the moment, and demanding what kind of statements earlier were made or actions that were taken by India. And to have an accountability process. I want your take in terms of both the BJP government that is in place and of course other political elements within the country engaging this conflict, how that's going to pan out in the country.
Yes, Slara, there would be two types of narratives which I am obviously looking at, that in coming days they will be coming from the Indian side. Number one, the people who are supposed to be behaving mature and who are supposed to be political figures, who are supposed to be diplomatic figures of India, of course they would be chanting about IWT, that we have blockaded the water and we are going to starve Pakistan, we are going to destroy their crops, and the button to destroy Pakistan's fields would be in our hands, and that's how we will be doing it. And we are going to punish Pakistan with this. There would be another set of people that would be considered as raw interlocutors. They have already started claiming many narratives on their screens, on their YouTube channels, and I'm talking about one very well known raw interlocutor, Major Ghauri. A couple of days ago, I was watching his video, and he said that we are providing BLA, BLF, and then TTP with an opportunity to engage Pakistan's military on Pakistan's eastern front, and it is an opportunity for all of them to engage Pakistan and to destroy Pakistan in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and in Balochistan. And look what has happened today. I mean, there was one of the attacks, and all of these people, BLA, BLF and TTP, all of them, they are proxies of India. And who tells so? I mean, their national security advisor, once he claimed himself that we have engaged Pakistan on the western front and we don't need to be practically be there. We would simply send our money in and our work would be done. So they are utilizing their proxies, and they are, I'm pretty much sure that they will be planning more attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and more attacks in Balochistan, and people like Kulbhushan Jadhav, wherever they will be sitting and of course facilitating and financing this terrorism in Pakistan, they would be getting a hell lot of money right now at this moment to, of course, spread it in all of these proxies, so that the attacks on Pakistan and on Pakistan's armed forces, they can be increased. And we have to be, of course, very cautious about it in coming days. And Indian politicians and diplomats and people who are supposed to portray sensible, they will never claim it. They would only claim the things that are not related to, of course, exporting terrorism to Pakistan. But when it comes to the interlocutors who are actually, hand and glove with their deep state, they will be simply claiming that whatever is happening in Balochistan and whatever is happening in KPK, we are doing it and we are giving Pakistan a lesson. And I think number one, we have to be cautious about it, and number two, our diplomatic missions right now, from today, they have to generate dossiers of even these interlocutors, because these interlocutors are mouthpieces of not only Indian deep state, but they are mouthpieces of Indian military, mouthpieces of Indian RAW, mouthpieces of BJP and Hindutva ideology behind that BJP.
Right, but Farrukh, I want your take, because we've given dossiers in the past as well, and there has been a lot of evidence that Pakistan has put forward regarding multiple things. How will that change now, given the current scenario? Will that be more effective for some reason? Is there something about our approach that can be different?
Right, Sana, there are two tragedies of this situation. One is truth, because Pakistan keeps on, flagging all the realities in the world, because India has the kind of diplomatic and economic heft. It keeps on actually throwing tantrums, and through that they get away with whatever they want. They have many speeches which are different, contradictory, but they simultaneously engage in everything. Like he was talking about Ghauri Varia, right? Ghauri Varia and people like that are openly saying that we are doing whatever we are doing in Pakistan, right? Then why are you outraged? If in cricket, if you're, I don't want to use the analogy, and I condemn whatever happened, right? And I don't want to, reduce human dignity to, ploys or stuff, right? But here's the thing. If you are playing cricket and the other side is going to go for a sixer, you're going to say he was corrupt, it is wrong, right? If you actually want to play a game and you think war is a game, and then you are trying to actually use it against us and confessing, then what is the outrage about? That means that if you're going to punch somebody, then they're going to punch back, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a punch thrown by Pakistan, because numbers don't add up. The whole situation in which it happened, like we have repeatedly said, Pahalgam has this distance of 200 kilometers from LOC. So tell me that invisibility cloak in which they hid, and then they traveled, 4 people, 5 people, with their M4s and their huge, satellite sets. And they kept on actually moving around in one of the world's most militarized theater. And then they managed to go to the place, and then they carried out a recce, and next day they come and they attack people and they kill them, right? That's absurd. So India has really jumped the gun, and then they have also shot themselves in the foot, as was said by my friend here. The biggest problem right now is that India does not understand that the world actually is watching. And whatever power you have because of your previous governments, right? For example, Manmohan Singh did this incredible job of building India's soft power, its diplomatic power, its economic power. But you are actually decimating that right now, because everything is informing now what? It is only informing your political narrative. So if there is a genuine benefit to be had by actually lowering your guard and compromising on something, you won't have it. Why? Because then it will compromise this macho, muscular image of yours. So India has really damaged itself too much this time. And I think that if you want to de-escalate, the biggest thing is, and I totally agree with what Faisal and Safi were saying, that India, if it wants to actually carry on this belligerence, their next theater has to be Balochistan, because this is what was said 10, 11 years ago, but 12 years ago by Ajit Doval, and he calls even Indians actually lose the order of words, right? It is called defensive offense. Why? We are going to be pretending to be defensive, but in the shadow of that will carry out something that will hurt you, right? Plausible deniability, but we will continue to damage you through two places. They actually talk about South because they want to disconnect you from hot water. Sindh and Balochistan. But of course, they use TTP also to their advantage. But at this moment, I think that if they are seen, they should not be doing it. One, if something happens in Balochistan, what kind of image of yourself are you going to portray to the world? You will celebrate it because that is your strength, but you cannot tell the world that you are doing it. So what happens? You're celebrating demise of common people, right? This kind of hatred, this kind of irrationality will not fly. And that's why it is a great moment, a teaching moment for India, that it can actually reorient itself. Look, just in the domain of propaganda, look at what they have done. They have persistently moved their language. Urdu and Hindi are twin sisters, right? It gives you incredible power within Pakistan because your movies used to actually speak that language. But what you have done is, while both Indians and Pakistanis have actually, whatever words were there, they had to include, they have usually adopted words from English, right? And we communicate fine. But their channels are repeatedly using more and more Sanskrit words. What happens then? Now, if you want to actually create a propaganda item, and then you are actually talking about something called Ashleel Shoshan, it is not going to fly in Pakistan because you have compromised your own capacity. Pakistan, do you know what happened in our memes and how did we actually do it? We showed the world our honesty and self-deprecating nature. Yeah. There's a term for this kind of humor. It is called post-collapse humor, right? If we are suffering through power outages, economic distress and whatnot, is India any better? India is also a post-colonial country. It also has the same kind of bureaucracy, same kind of electricity problems. They have their toilet issues as well and so much more, right? So if you want to show to the world that you're powerful, all those debates actually are relegated to the background. Then the world says, look, you are not even being truthful to yourself. If Pakistan can use post-collapse humor, why shouldn't India? But India has actually lost its sense of humor because of whatever has happened in past 11 years. Here's a better way. To stop using Pakistan as a distraction and address your local issues. You can do that, and you have a great opportunity to do this. Open the doors, let there be air in your country. We'll also open our windows and let us be rational about it.
Absolutely. And while, of course, that is the hope, Safi, I'll come to you. We, of course, unfortunately haven't seen that happening previously as well, with more sensible decisions coming out from India or dialogue progressing forward. And so I want your take, while we talk about de-escalation or the temperatures going down with the current situation, and that may be so, but at the heart of the matter is still the issue of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and then, of course, with the unilateral actions of 2019 and no real consequence or accountability, that issue still remains at hand. And at the same time, while we take a look at what is going on within the occupied valley, there's also, of course, this concern then that if this is the kind of political disintegration or social disintegration within India, that is still another country that we're dealing with in the neighborhood who's nuclear armed. And so when we engage on the diplomatic fronts, how are we dealing with these two issues then, which will still remain even if we have the current de-escalation?
In many ways, India has in fact made the matters so much worse for itself. So India had put out a narrative that the Kashmir Valley is free to go into. All right, terrorist attack took place. Because of that, tourists have now stopped flocking to the Kashmir Valley. Very unfortunate that the peace in the valley has been disturbed. Whereas the Muslims in Kashmir have been living through hell for the last 60-70 years. But let's forget about those Muslims. Like we completely forget about the Palestinians. Let's just focus on Hindu pundits who are profiting off this tourist trade. Now, by this warmongering, they have put an end permanently to the idea of tourism for the next couple of years, because now everybody is going to think that Pakistan is going to attack, and Pakistan is a genuine threat, which it was not. By making a non-existent threat there, what they have done is they have essentially put an end to any economic investment that was going to go into the Kashmir Valley, any proper integration, thereby fulfilling, making it a self-fulfilling prophecy where in which the economic standards will go down. That will create further problems within Muslims and Hindus of the region. The Hindus will continue to leave the Kashmir Valley, leaving the Muslims there, and they will continue to ask for freedom. So whatever possible idea that India had that they would integrate Kashmir is now gone. But I just want to add one thing here. It's so much worse for India in many ways, because if you think about it, India had a golden opportunity. Modi had a golden opportunity right now. He came back with the highest approval ratings of any leader in the world. If he had made regional peace, if he had become a regional ruler, he would be looked upon as a great leader for centuries to come, if not decades. And he would have been the guy who would have put India on the map. Instead, now what we see is him fighting with Bangladesh, him fighting with Nepal, him fighting with Pakistan, unable to control, let alone Kashmir, Manipur, the Khalistan, Mizoram. All of these places have now sprung up again. And to make matters even worse, India had come across this golden opportunity in this exact moment of time when Trump put tariffs on China, humongous tariffs. Apple, big companies were thinking about relocating to India. Will they relocate to India if there's a threat of war? Of course not. All the plans are scrapped. No multinational is going to bring their $50 billion, $100 billion investment into India, which is something that would have tremendously benefited the poor Indian. But why is all of this happening? Elections in Bihar, that's it. You just need some sort of a speaking point. And what's worse is, I find this, well, like he said, I listen to a lot of these Indian analysts, Gauravaria, Abhijit Sharma. These guys talk about themselves. They say that India is not actually going to do anything. India is not going to take any action. Like he said, this is all being done so that BLA or TTP, because they tried Jafar Express, they tried different things, they failed. Now they just want to give them some more space, time to regroup, time to, that's it. Just because their proxies were falling off, that is why they decided to create this massive theater. And in the end, they have just ended up strengthening the Pakistani resolve. They don't understand what happens to Pakistanis. We get together, that's the problem. They don't understand how we react. Yeah. They thought that we were a highly polarized society, perfect time to strike. Turns out it was just poor timing, where it turns out that we were willing to put our political differences aside, come back together, all sit in the same room, and resolve our problems through and through like brothers. Yeah. So once again, everything seems to have gone really poorly for them.
Right.
Just poor strategy, really.
Right. Another question I wanted to ask is with regards to when we talk about our calls for a neutral and independent probe into what has happened in Pahalgam, and that of course is a fair demand to ask. But I want your take in terms of understanding how does this work internationally if a country is accusing another of an attack without any evidence, and while the country who's accused is calling for an independent probe into what has happened. The country who's actually accused is not really allowing that, or that hasn't happened, but of course has taken a series of measures in response to that without any evidence. Where is the accountability in all of this? Can one country just go ahead and do that, and then there can be this blockade of an independent investigation, and that's it?
So unfortunately, in international law, there is no concept of mandatory enforcement. It's all consensual. It is only when India consents to an international probe and approves a certain number of people who would come in and probe, only then can it happen. You cannot force India to do that. Now, under normal circumstances, for instance, in places like Iran, when they wanted an international probe by the IAEA and see if Iran has nuclear weapons, Iran did not have a choice, because there was always a risk of sanctions. If Iran does not comply, other countries will sanction him. India, because of its diplomatic clout, knows that no country is going to sanction them, especially because Trump is going ballistic with all his tariffs. So they don't want yet another country getting sanctioned and disrupting international trade in that manner. And that is what India has basically relied on. The idea that they have good trade links with Russia, which is the most sanctioned country, with Iran, which is the most sanctioned country, and despite breaking international law there, they were not sanctioned. They're just relying on the fact that they will continue to evade diplomatic responsibility and continue to decimate international law, just like Israel is. Maybe they have taken a couple of items out of Israel's rule book, realizing that the rule-based world order is currently faltering, and they want to utilize it to their best efforts. But once again, all it's doing is creating resentment amongst the neighbors. All it's doing is everybody is now looking at India as an unstable, unreliable partner.
Sure.
It's not helping them, it's just causing more distress to them.
Right. And Faisal, I want your take on that, because how can we then leverage this standpoint at this current moment to enhance our own geopolitical position, even post the current scenario?
Yeah, I think Pakistan has already gained that position in terms that since this Pahalgam attack took place, of course, Pakistan very maturely tackled with it and engaged with the international world. And I think the way Pakistan dealt with it, it was being considered very mature of Pakistan as a state, and especially a nuclear state. When it comes to India, India has lost ground diplomatically, and by the way, even before that, they weren't doing very fine since more than a year. Reason being, whatever they have been doing to counter the Khalistan movement in the Western world, of course, paying people to get somebody murdered just because they wanted to eliminate them and neutralize the Khalistan movement people, be it and where were they doing? They were doing it in the hearts of the Western world. I mean, they were doing it in obviously
Canada.
Canada, America, Britain, and then of course they were even reaching out to the Australia as well.
Australia,
and all of these countries, they are part of Five Eyes. I mean, Five Eyes, they were keeping an eye on the Indians and whatever their activities were. That's why people like Gupta and Yadav and all of these people, they got caught red-handed. And once Indians they got caught red-handed, of course, whatever they have been doing after that and before that, it is going to get scrutinized. And I think this very moment, India, to some extent, the West has understood that previously, of course, remember India wanted to hold one of the G8 summits in Kashmir last time around. Yeah.
G20.
Yeah,
G20, I believe.
G20. G20 summits, they wanted to hold it there. And right at the end, of course, they weren't approved by a majority of the members that they won't be coming there. Still, they held it there in terms of attracting people who were visiting India in terms of a G20 summit and all. They wanted to attract people. They couldn't do it at that time. Reason being, the biggest reason was that the resistance movement of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is still considered as a genuine movement. The freedom movement is considered as a genuine movement out there. When it comes to Balochistan, BLA and BLF, they are considered as banned outfits, as terrorist outfits, and their movement is not considered as a genuine freedom movement. Because if we look at the demographics of Balochistan, of course, ethnic Baloch, I mean, forget about how many of them are in favor of Balochistan as a separate state or whatever. I mean, it's hardly around 1,500 to 2,000 militants who are being paid by India to do the havoc they create. And of course, terrorism is a reality. And they do it on the behest of, on the money of, on the big billions of dollars which India has been earning since a decade. And they have been doing it just because of that. And world knows about it, and Kulbhushan Jadhav is in Pakistan's hands. And where was he caught? He was caught there red-handed, and he was roaming around with a passport, carrying a passport with the name of Mubarak Hussain Patel. I mean, if Pakistan can know about it, Pakistan can know about the realities of it. Do you think the Five Eyes would be ignorant of that? No. They must have been, scrutinizing him every time he was making a visit. Reason being, they are keeping an eye on Iran. And this man, he has been, of course, passing through Iran and all. So they wouldn't have been ignorant about that. When it comes to India's plan, India wants the resistance movement and the freedom movement of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir to be considered as a terrorist movement, to be considered as anyone who raises the voice against India in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and wants to resist the rogue Indian military's presence in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They want the West to consider them as part of the terrorism, and they must be declared as terrorists, so that India can simply endorse the abrogation of 370 and 35A and tell the world that it has been, it is, and it would always be part of India. I'm talking about Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and they simply want to engulf Indian illegally occupied
But nothing
Jammu and
has
Kashmir
happened since
with that.
2019 regarding this.
But nothing has happened, but diplomatically there is a pressure on India. Diplomatically there is a pressure on India, reason being.
But it has
the
been 6
resolution-
years since, and there's
Rea-
been no change.
Reason being the United Nations resolutions, they shun the unilateral decisions made by any of the countries, by
Right,
Pakistan
but
or
just
by
as
India.
Barrister Safi was saying, there is nothing that's actually binding the country.
There is nothing, but morally the stance is still there. Morally, of course, India is still
What's
facing
the
this.
impact of that?
Impact of that is that morality, if there is still the existence of morality in the United Nations, lately we have been seeing very scarcity of morality in the United Nations. But if there ever existed any morality, I'm of the view that resistance movement of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has the value and will always carry the value. Reason being, world itself sees that if now nobody hears any voice coming from that part of the world, it's only because that it is considered as one of the most militarized zone of the world, and no media is allowed there, and controlled social media is allowed there, and when it comes to people out there, they are simply facing a demographic change. Reason being, time after time, the policies BJP is introducing in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they are anti-human. Forget about being anti-Kashmir, but anti-human. Reason being, they simply want to, create a demographic imbalance to show the world that Kashmir is not an issue at all.
Right. Safi,
I'll
want
just,
to
I'll
add
just
something?
add to this, and it's because you were asking a really good question. I have a take on this. Kashmir is a very poor state in the sense that there are a lot of human rights atrocities. What he's talking about takes place on a regular basis. The world does not know it. Like you said, things happened in 2019 that should have shaken the world's conscience. They did not. As a result, what happened was that Kashmir sort of became a non-issue for the rest of the world. Now, suddenly, because of Indian overreaction, and the very fact that two nuclear states could go to war and effectively put an end to the whole world, the entire world is now once again looking at Kashmir, trying to figure out what Kashmir is. It has reignited an issue that, had India left it alone, would have benefited them. But by them being so belligerent over a non-issue, by going at it without any evidence, they have once again poked a very serious hole into their own strategies. And the Kashmir issue now once again remains to be seen by the whole world.
But is that a matter of the information not reaching the audience, or is it a matter of the audience, despite having the information, not doing much about it, like we've seen in Palestine?
Now, see, that's a great question, right? So now in Palestine, if let's say Gaza gets destroyed, somebody sitting in the US does not care, it does not impact their life, right? With Kashmir, for the first time, everybody is talking about the idea of two nuclear states going to war. If we go to war, the world will end. The United States will end. The nuclear winter will engulf the entire earth and nobody will survive. So now, I think smarter minds will have to understand that we need to look at Kashmir. We can't just ignore it.
I
it is humanity, not like a little area.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right. Farrukh, do you think it's becoming a problem that it's not just India and Pakistan's anymore?
Right. You're talking about Pakistan, this escalation, this
The
confrontation
issue
of
of
Kashmir.
Kashmir.
Look, and this actually takes us back to your original question during the last tour. I wanted to actually come to that, and then I was lost in the
Sorry.
waves. My apologies for that. But you know, there's a reason why the far right governments actually do what they do. And there's a reason why the international system is getting weaker and weaker by the day. Every country, every organization, every group that is far right or fascistic, so to speak, they want international system to break. Why? Because then it cannot stop them from doing whatever they want to do. The second thing is normalizing hardline stuff. This human rights violations, everything. If it is happening everywhere in the world, why would anybody care? So there is a diminishing of international order, that is for sure, right? And people keep on attributing it to Donald Trump, but I think that the story actually started before that. It started with immediately with 2014 when Modi ji actually came to power, and his people actually got to work all over the world. They have been biggest allies of all right, far right fascistic organizations around the world, right? At this moment, you cannot begrudge the UN for not being able to help, because it is the biggest problem is its system is such that it can be paralyzed, right? And it is paralyzed right now because it runs on other countries' money, it works on other countries' army, it works on everything that is borrowed from somewhere else, right? But what has India done? In 2014, they immediately started investing in hard right movements around the world. In Europe, Europe is facing this attrition of far right repeatedly, and people keep on attributing it to Russia. But what is happening actually is that, for example, Article 370 was abrogated. Everybody was saying that India is isolated. International media was also criticizing India. Who came to their rescue, Sana? It was because Shrivastava group also got actually exposed by that. It was hard right MEPs of Europe. So you clearly see that there is a hand behind their rise because India has power, India has influence. They want the system to break so that they can get away with everything that they want. Why do you think that all of a sudden India seems to have so much power in every country? This is because of that habit of taking no prisoners when it comes to pursuit of whatever you want, and this maximum policy of attrition. So at the UN, elsewhere also, even if you are conveying the message that Kashmir is an important thing, they will do three things. One, expand more war zones. Palestine is an example. Palestine continues to happen. Similarly, before that, war and terror, and in war and terror, India's influence of educating Western narrative on how bad Muslims were was also part of that. And there was so much violence going on. And then Arab Spring came and the Arab world erupted. Syria, what happened to Syria, Libya, Yemen, elsewhere. Because of that split screen situation, the pain that you are inflicting becomes irrelevant compared to the pain that is going on elsewhere, right? It doesn't mean that the world does not know what Kashmir is. It is not true that the world does not realize that there is injustice in Kashmir. Had there been India's point of view been sold, the world would have been at our neck all the time. This is what I say. We forget that we confuse substance with form, right? We keep on saying that India has so much influence. That's why they get formal, appreciation by somebody. If India had substance on its side, they would have killed us. And at this moment, Pakistan would have been ambushed by everybody, including our best allies, right? We keep on asking for validation in a form. that won't come because India is too powerful, because India has too much money, India has too much diplomacy. But in substance, you have won already. Otherwise, the world would have been, UNSC would have been debating sanctions on Pakistan, right, without any evidence. So I think that at this moment we have to appreciate, and by the way, this is why I say that India has allowed, India after all, like us, is a post-colonial country. And their biggest problem is they have allowed the common man on the street and then their own intellectuals also to be obsessed about one word: power. And because they keep on obsessing about power, they haven't been able. Why India and Pakistan are stuck in the third world, Sana? Why are we not the first world? Because we haven't been able to graduate from an honor-based society to a merit-based society, right? When you have the honor and familism is essentially educating everything, then you cannot actually demand merit and compete with the world. And this is why India's honor-based or power-based, intellectuals, the obsession keep on seeing geopolitics in everything. We do too, and that is sad, and we should correct, and this is my argument repeatedly. Cricket is not politics. Economy is not politics. Economy actually helps you in getting people out of poverty, and that is a good thing. If you graduate from that mindset, Sanas, India and Pakistan can be, beacons in the world.
Yeah.
We are victims of centuries of, oppression, right? And that can be corrected very easily when you graduate from this honor-based, power-obsessed societies to merit-based economic orders, which are just and they are good. But the problem is, as they say, hurt people, right? Because we are hurt, because India is hurt, or it keeps on adding to its weight of victimhood. Because of that, you don't care what happens to others. That is not the right way. If you are a victim, you should realize that you don't want to victimize anybody else. You should do away with hatred and institutional, oppression within your own country. In India, this casteism, right? And people talk about Manusmriti, right? And Manusmriti is not a part of their central faith or tenets. But it is an important part, and it has been educating people. And now that they are going for caste census, that unfortunately is going to attract, at least the forward caste are going to do something about it. But here's the thing. When you cannot change a thing, what you do is you change its meaning, right? For example, in Islam, because Islam came so early, and because there were so many things, slavery is not banned. But do we actually believe in keeping slaves?
Yeah.
No, we don't. So what do? You phase out the things that are bad, and you make peace with the reality of life. Unfortunately, India's media, their power structure is still broken because it is a post-colonial bad order, and they have the same kind of moralist bureaucracy. If you want to see a country that has changed despite being post-colonial, it is America. The average journey has nothing to do with power. They are not obsessed about power. They just want to take care of their own American dream.
Right.
You can do too. And this is why I keep on saying, learn something from Donald Trump, because while he projects power, he is also very flexible. India is not. What happens if you are too flexible, rigid? You are not flexible at all, you are too rigid. People break you. And you might think that you alone, you are very powerful vis-a-vis another country, but once the hive mind actually starts, they will crush you.
Right. Thank you very much, Farrukh. Thank you, Barrister Safi. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the transmission today. That's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.